Hi, welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we are joined today. We have the honor to be speaking with Erika Allen. Yay! Thank you, Erika. Miss Allen is the CEO for Urban Growers Collective, and she's the president of Green ERA Educational NPF and co-owner of Green ERA Sustainability Partners. Now, Urban Growers Collectives is a Black and woman-led nonprofit farm in Chicago, Illinois, hey, Chi-Town, where they are working to build a more
Southside.
and
Yes.
equitable local food system. They provide hands-on job training, create economic opportunity for youth and beginning farmers that are persons of color, and the urban collective farm. They farm on urban farmland of over 11 acres, predominantly located on the south side of Chicago. Ma'am, thank you. Thank you. First off, how did you get started? And what were your barriers to entry in farming in south side of Chicago?
Oh, we need so much more time for me to break down the whole narrative. I'll do my best. So just to make a little bit more abbreviated, I grew up on a family farm, no off-farm labor. My dad is Will Allen, and he founded Growing Power in Milwaukee. He always wanted to farm. We had to farm growing up as part of just how we were able to just have income in our household.
Hmm.
It was also an important part of just my upbringing, just learning how to work, contributing to collective work, and also just bringing really beautiful, good food into the inner city using the old terminology in my childhood. When there were still thriving big open markets where thousands of people would come out and purchase bushels of greens and peas and
Yeah.
corn and all the things that we used to eat a lot more of. So I grew up doing that, and I had no intention of going back into farming. I moved to Chicago to go to art school, went to the School of the Arts in Chicago. I became, interested in social justice and understanding structural racism and how it plays itself out just from just early inquiry. There's a lot of microaggressions and overt racism, within the art school experience. And just demarcations around where to go, what was safe, all kinds of things that didn't make sense to me, and so I was curious. And I also felt a real an important part of being a black woman, young black woman with light skin privilege, and being able to
Mm.
extend that to folks who did not have the opportunity or even saw themselves having access to the arts. That was really important to me, and I could see that those connections are difficult. So that kind of activated me. I wanted to be a community-based artist. I wanted to do teaching and collective work and healing work. I ended up getting my degree in master's in art psychotherapy, and wrote my thesis on creating an after-school workforce development program as alternative to sentencing adolescents. So rather
Yeah.
than sending our kids to prison, I wanted to do treatment and and using the arts to really address untreated trauma, especially youth who got involved in the justice system. So that was my thesis. And then 9/11 happened. I was
Mm.
working at a family resource and support agency, and was running a food pantry, FEMA services for rent, CETA services for utilities, and just helping to stabilize families through having good, food, pantry food, like
Yeah.
literally curating bags so that families could take a bag of food and have it last for the month and have more cash flow in the household.
Yes.
And 9/11 happened, and I realized how food insecure everybody was, and that in that moment when we didn't know how bad, like what was happening, the only thing I could think of for myself that I would be safe and I could have food and water was going back up to Wisconsin to my parents' farm. And I had an epiphany of, oh my gosh, like I'm working with all of these folks in my community, and what would they do? They don't have the privilege that I have where I know how to grow food, that I have family land, I have, parents who know how to
Mhm.
grow food and prepare it if there was some disaster. And that really activated me to begin recognizing the privilege that I had, yet another privilege, that I felt compelled to activate urban farming because I knew how to grow food. But then
Yeah.
I had to go back and learn new technique, and my dad had developed systems of fertility. He created a whole system that wasn't reliant on having a lot of startup resources to be able to grow food. And
Hmm.
I brought that into Chicago and opened an office. And in 2018, the office, Growing Power, closed, and my office turned into an organization called Urban Growers Collective. And I also co-founded Green ERA, with the goal of taking food waste that normally would go into the landfill, emitting as it breaks down,
Mhm.
organic matter breaks down and releases methane into the atmosphere. That methane is a renewable form of natural gas. So
Hmm.
Green ERA has built a plant to divert that food waste to back to compost to grow food again. So it's like a large scale
Yeah.
composter, and captures that methane, pushes it into the pipeline
Mhm.
as a renewable form of natural gas. And I have material to grow more food. So that all of that arc has led to having one of the first energy companies that is owned by a Black woman,
I love
in
that.
partnership. So out of trying to figure out how to feed my community as an artist and really as
This
a
was a
strategy,
byproduct.
yeah, to keep our kids out of prison and
That's
instead address structural violence and why it exists, because of the wealth gap and the lack of treatment for I don't know even how to say it, like for unrecognized, unresolved trauma that we're still
Yeah.
dealing with from
yeah, we
enslavement.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, untreated for decades, treated trauma. I do want to say that's the episode that I saw. That's the news report that I saw
Okay.
talking about the ethanol, or what did you say? The
It's
gases.
renewable. It's a renewable form of natural gas. It's
Yeah,
the methane
man.
that, when you eat the wrong combinations of food and you release a little gas,
Yeah.
that's methane. So it's basically a mechanical digestive system
Mhm.
that breaks down food waste and captures that methane, and then through the process, when it's finished doing that, it gets pressed out of the liquids, and then you have compost. And
Right.
then I take that and grow more food with it. So you have a
When
Wow.
I
circular economy and
Yes.
perpetual energy, and it's natural, so we don't need to, bring in fertility from the majority of the fertility that's used in the U.S. for precision agriculture, row crop agriculture, was made in Ukraine. So yeah, so there's some larger scale implications around our food system and its safety, which really, again, my work really came out of food security and being recognizing how vulnerable, not only in terms of supply chain, but also in skills. And just like kids, not like no one really knowing except for elders how to grow food.
Yeah. So did your dad come in to help you start this off in Chicago? Did he
No, he was
find you?
doing his own operation in Milwaukee,
Okay.
Growing Power, and so he's he's one of the pioneers of this reactivation of agriculture in cities, but really in returning to the land, right? So being able to take food waste to create, uh, growing in hoop houses, unheated, being able to work with vermicompost and worms and aquaponics to create these ecosystems that we trained thousands of people in those different technologies. And then one of my specialties is project planning because of the project office, like really
Mhm.
kind of creating all these farms, creating, there's something about talking about these issues, but actually building the systems and then changing the policies around land.
So it seems like Urban Growers Collective has started its own ecosystem. Because as I was perusing the website, I could see that there's job training and education, and along with that, Urban Growers Collective is doing an apprenticeship. They do youth corps internships.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more, or can you tell us about how Urban Growers Collective, because I was talking about it being an ecosystem, how you are able to do the job training and the things that you're doing there in Chicago?
Sure. I mean, all of this really came out of the need for employment and safe spaces for young people to develop.
Mm.
And we know that, Chicago is one of these places where we get a lot of bad rap, but it's also, there's been tremendous opportunities to really address long-standing structural racism issues and
Hmm.
violence issues through the kind of unpacking of the wealth disparity and
Mm.
how that also relates to life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that those things are all intertwined and complex, being able to pay youth from an early age to value collective work, to be able to have a look to extend a little bit of my childhood, where I couldn't get into a lot of trouble because I was too tired. you know,
Working on that
uh,
farm.
Right.
and you learn work ethic, you just learn a lot, and you're not afraid of hard work. And young people who have limited options, their pathways are so narrow,
Mm.
they fall off, it's deadly, or they're incarcerated. We know all of these things. I just saw it as an opportunity to utilize the food system, and also beginning to look at land and return that, because
Mm-hmm.
we've tried so many times as a people to get back to the land, to actually benefit
Yes.
from our labor, from our
Mm-hmm.
talent in growing food. Our talents were utilized to build the wealth of this nation and really the world.
Hmm.
And we are yet to be the beneficiaries of that. So
Right.
understanding that and using that as a guide to also do some of the therapeutic interventions,
Hmm.
so that we can see ourselves in a different, especially young people, in a different light, and to value hard work, and to do so in a way that's also nourishing to the community and to the
Mm.
environment, is really what the work has been about. And it's really it's created opportunities. We were part of a like a research protocol called Ready, and it was as a way to interrupt recidivism, and also to introduce cognitive behavioral therapy, so
Okay.
that men, and this is for Black men specifically,
Hmm.
to be able to gain the skills to be able to address maladaptive responses, but also to begin to do restorative justice work. And how
Mm.
beautiful to do that work on farms, where I can also unpack some of my own trauma,
Yes.
speaking from the perspective of one of the men who are in our programs,
Mm-hmm.
um, and also get accolades for beautification, for nourishing. So just returning the humanity to, um, our people who've really been victimized and exploited through the agriculture system, is part of our collective healing. And as somebody who does that work and understands that intersectionality and the complexity, and also the economics,
Yes.
critical to get paid. It's critical to see the work as mutual aid and volunteering and all of
Hmm.
those things, but also for young people to make that connection, for folks who may have not had wide pathways with multiple options, and seeing, oh, the world's my oyster, I can do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I had young people who were in high school, had never seen the lake before, born and raised in Chicago. And
Yeah.
because one of
Yeah.
our projects was in downtown Chicago, right across from Buckingham Fountain, front yard of Chicago, herbs and hortos, our motto here, city in a garden. was our first time seeing the lake and being downtown. We have
Mm-hmm.
robust public transportation, but
Yes.
that is how entrenched the redlining,
Yeah.
the segregation, and the sort of demarcation,
Yes.
invisible and not sometimes invisible. Some of it's self-imposed, some of it gang lines, literal. It's just not safe. And to
Right.
be able to kind of break some of those things, because we would empower our young people. You got to come to work. You're green now. Like
Hmm.
you're coming through to grow food, and that has made generational change within
Breaking those
some
cycles.
breaking the cycles, and it's real, and it's all through farming. So that's critical to me. Like young people have to get paid. It shifts their perception of what they can do as entrepreneurs, but also to be able to work together for the betterment of our communities. And to do all that, you need compost, which is why I got to digest it.
Go ahead, girl. That's right. That's
Because it's
right.
I mean, it gets contaminated. I mean, that's the other thing is we know we have lead issues. We know that
Hmm.
impacts especially households that are living in subpar conditions,
Mm-hmm.
and that affects human development. And so being able to
Yeah.
mitigate that through replacing that soil, making sure that the education is there around that, but
Hmm.
also that we're raising awareness. I don't do that specific work, but I do know that if people don't know that the soils in their yard are contaminated, and someone well, I'm going to create a garden and there's no material, or
Yeah.
even if it's a raised box, wood
Hmm.
box or something, and you go to the Home Depot or wherever, not to give any brand names out, but you go to your local
Your
garden
local home
center
improvement store.
That's
and
right.
get your topsoil. I mean, that fertility is only going to last for maybe one cropping. And if you're growing the way we grow in urban ag, which is highly intensive, close together plantings, we're able to do that because of the fertility in the soil. And so
Okay.
all of that our young people learn, and then they bring that back into the community. And before you know it, I have adult staff members who started when they were 9, 14,
Oh,
who
wow.
their children are now in the
Are
program.
coming
A
back.
So
This
blessing.
they're
really
in,
is an
yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah,
Yeah.
4 generations in now. My
Wow.
dad, me, the young people who now have
Hmm.
children who are now in youth corps,
Who their
where
their
they
kids are
started.
there.
Yes, so
So
we're 4 in now.
Go ahead,
what are
Kat.
the age groups? That's one question. Where do you start? How early do you start? And I know it goes up to any age, but how early do you start?
So we actually run the gamut at this point. We have a Little's Garden, an urban farm at a Head Start, early childhood onset
Oh,
prevention
Mm.
center. So we start with 20. I think that some of those children are 20 weeks, little
oh, so
babies.
toddlers.
Uh,
So you got
yeah,
toddlers.
little babies all the way up to whatever 6 months.
So they come and play in the dirt.
Yeah. They
Oh.
start they start when they can enter into this. I'm
Hmm.
trying to think. I think is it, yeah, 22 months, something like that, 24
Okay.
months. So
Mhm.
littles up to pre-K, and all of the classrooms rotate through the farm. And actually, our farm director, his children go to the center. So
Okay.
these babies are growing up seeing young Black men as farmers, growing in this, like helping to tend the space and reconnecting and rescripting
Yeah.
those narratives. So
So
that's powerful.
is there a child development center that's on site, or do the children come
No,
there?
no, no. It's a fee
Okay.
for service. So we work
Okay.
with a child, like a literal Head Start,
Okay.
a child care center, ounce of prevention. It's called Educare in Chicago,
Hmm.
in Bronzeville, and I think there's 12 classrooms all cycle through, and then they have parent resource center as well. So the food that is grown in the little farm is distributed with
To the
parent
families.
pickup. We just had a harvest festival, and so that those children are growing up with part of their education being in the garden, picking, having sensory experiences, having that early. So we start
Hmm.
there. Then we kind of like, we don't do a lot of elementary and like grammar school, like that kind
Mhm.
of age group. We kind of go from that
To high school.
to high school, and then from high school to college, post, kind of post, master's, doctorate level, and then adults.
So your
Um,
the
we kind of
apprenticeship,
skip
the
that middle
the
kind of,
Middle Ages.
yeah,
I could,
because
I
it's
could
school
see that.
based,
Yeah.
The
and the
apprenticeships, the youth corps, and the internships, what age ranges are those targeting?
youth corps is high school. So those
Okay.
are young people who are 14 to 18,
18.
so
Okay.
high school age, and then their last year coming out of graduation. And then we start internships, and those are paid internships. We
While they're in college.
actually, they're college or just after high
Okay.
school. So
Okay.
we're agnostic about their education
Okay.
pathways.
Agnostic.
But we just started it took us a few years, but we now have, just to get funding in place, starting to work with Tuskegee and UNC
Oh.
through, so it was really important to us to be able to provide, stipends and compensation. So young, early stage researchers and folks who want to work in the food system to be able to have that experience without taking away from money I got to earn in the summer to be able to like
Yeah.
cover school. So we were able to do that, and it's important to introduce this work, practical work, so that it
Mhm.
can impact the research and sort of the experience that our young people have when they're in university, so that they're coming out of school already with an understanding of the field, having some practical experience, and really kind of building their passion and capacity to return to do this work, because it's generational work.
So
It's not,
yeah.
Erica's going to do all the work, or Erica's dad, or now Malcolm and Laurelyn and others, Darian and others that have returned to do this work, but that it's continuing and that we're broadening the disciplines within it, because all of this is still restorative. We're still restoring both the technology, but also the importance of this within our communities as we're continuing to heal and recover.
We
Hmm.
definitely need to have you on our show, honey.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're in our love seat. When I, because my
I'm
sister,
feeling it. Thank you.
girl, because I'm giving you like a Georgia love, but honey, look. And but my co-host over here, honey, I know she busted at the seams because
Cause
she is
you know what you know where my mind is.
I know, right? I know you about to get in there because she's a child advocate, guardian item. She
Mm.
fights and
Oh,
10 toes
wow.
down in that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
so
10 toes.
my
I say
my
10 toes and 10 fingers.
Fingers.
That's
I know,
20.
I
We
know,
got
right?
it.
Get it on.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
one of the things I wanted to ask you, we're in Georgia and agriculture is really big. We know that there are food deserts. My background is exercise science and nutritionist, and so I completely understand and know it. We have other Black farmers, urban farmers who are struggling.
Yeah.
What tips can you give them that they can really build upon and get their farms up and running? We have Black egg farmers, quail farmers. We have
Mm.
the traditional. We have people with goats. We have traditional, greens and vegetables and all that other good stuff. What advice can we give them? Because a lot of it is money. You hit
Yeah.
on a heavy one. We know it's injustices, point
Mhm.
blank, period. And a lot of our communities, I lived in Chicago, like I said, my people up there, South Side, hey, and I'm from Detroit. People here in Georgia, people don't think Atlanta has food deserts. We have plenty of them.
Yes, we do.
We have food deserts, you have landfills behind people, neighborhoods and stuff, and you know the color of the people where those landfills are. And
Absolutely.
when
Yep.
you said people want to go in the backyard, shoot, I want to go in the backyard and grow something, but my soil isn't good. So
Yeah.
please drop some nuggets. What funding, what resources, point folks in direction. How can current farmers and those just some of us who want to go in that backyard, which I know now to go to that local store and give me a box.
Well, you need the fertility, right? So part of what we did with Growing Power was train a lot of people in the technique. The
Okay.
the monetization of it is challenging. People, like, especially when we're trying to address, let's call it food apartheid, because
Mm.
it is not equal, and it's And it is a real race divided level of access
Food
and
apartheid.
quality of the food that is available in our communities. And also just like the valuing of the food. If I have a limited income, I'm gonna get what's gonna give me a dopamine rush. I'm gonna get high calorie, over processed food. It's convenient and it reality. Um, and rather than fighting that, we start to do these early interventions. So that is one of the pathways. It's a public health pathway. There's lots of procurement dollars that can pay farmers to grow
Hmm.
delicious food to get into those pathways. So urban farming, rural farming, peri-urban farming is a business. A lot of people romanticize farming and start farming, and they haven't thought about how they're going to pay for it. We people kind of joke about the $100 tomato. After they go in and get the garden center and like do their black girls gardening fantasy, and it's like you eat $100 tomato, right? But you're doing that for a therapeutic. It
Yes.
is it is a soul enriching
Yes.
spiritual experience to be connected to the earth, and it's important that we do that. So there's that. So that is a whole kind of arena, and it's important for people to differentiate the business of farming
Hmm.
from the cultural reclamation and therapeutic
Yes. Yes.
aspect of farming. And sometimes they get kind of mixed together. I had to learn that the hard way. And also just the sort of like the need to have enough capital to be able to have the runway, to have the right business plan, to have the diversified operation that you can take that tomato and make it $100 tomato for you because you made a sauce, you partnered with another entity to make tomato jam. You got 5 products. You got pickled okra.
Right.
You have to kind of plan it and
Hmm.
have realistic expectations for what you're going to make in your operation. And then just having the classes, having ecotourism, we did like, and we've tried a lot of different things. Goat yoga. There's a time when people just wanted to like do yoga with goats,
Yeah.
but they would pay for that. And so just that one goat yoga paid for our feed for the season. So there's ways to do it, but it's just like any other entrepreneurial pursuit. Plus, it's risky
Mm.
because we got hurricanes coming through. What
Yes.
happens when those things destroy your
The
your
crop.
your your operation? So you need insurance, and there's USDA agencies that provide that. There's all kinds of resources, but you still have to have the skill, you have to have the business plan, and you have to have the land. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm seeing is such an important, because it's collateral as well, is that we hold on to our family land and that we think about how that land can sustain us. We also can
Mm.
think about like, I mean, I do social enterprise, not for profit work. It's taken me 23 years to have a digester that has the potential, because we just started, the potential of cash flowing and generating wealth that's non-extractive to the environment or people. That took a
Wow.
whole lot of experience and a whole lot of building the field to get to the point where people even understood why that was important.
Okay.
So, I mean, even it's in the South, people are still doing row cropping. People still aren't using natural fertility. There's so
Mm.
many things. There's land, but it's a different ecosystem. Um, so I don't know if I'm really answering. It's a
You
complex question to
are.
But
answer.
how specifically, how did you start
Oh,
growing, and how did you start specifically?
I mean, I started as a response to, for me, from 9/11 and seeing my
Mm.
dad's model and wanting it in
Okay.
Chicago. I wanted a food center. I wanted to create a space where I transitioned my work from using art as a
Mm.
therapeutic intervention to using food as a therapeutic intervention. So
Did you
my
already
early
have the
work,
land?
no, I farmed in public spaces
Okay.
because I didn't even want to. I wasn't even at the point of like trying to figure out how to buy land because I wasn't doing it as an entrepreneurial
Okay.
activity. I was doing it as a crisis intervention to disrupt incarceration for young people
Got you.
and to
Okay.
address social issues. It evolved. We created the field, and then as it became we found out there's zoning. I didn't know about zoning. I'm like, there's land. Why can't I just,
Yeah.
I mean, really, I just was like, oh, there's all this empty land. Let's just grow food here. And
Mhm.
my vision around it didn't have any limits. It was like, well, this is land. We just need the fertility. I know how to do that. We just need to, and I would come in and
And
like
there's
with a
politics
truckload
connected to
of,
land.
oh, there's all kinds of, and that had to be uncovered. Oh, that's a
Mhm.
barrier. Well, now I got to do policy. So we had to
Mhm.
get urban ag zoning.
Mhm.
We had to then create, I had to deal with a lot of like tropes of like, oh, you can't grow all the food in the city. It's like that's not the point. But when there's an emergency, you best don't want to know where you can get some
That's
non-shelf stable
Yes.
greens or something.
Yeah.
And all of us were food insecure during the pandemic because the
Absolutely.
supply chains broke down. And it's not just the immediate fill the belly, it's the long arc of who knows how to do this, who can
mhm.
take stuff we're throwing away and create fertility, who
Correct.
has those skills, and making sure that they're there in every community, especially in ours, because we're the most vulnerable
Let,
typically.
let me ask you this: do you think it's a space for AI in ag?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I like the continuum of everything. Like I'm
Mm.
doing a tech project, but I also value pitchfork and wheelbarrow, and I can farm like that too. Like we have
Absolutely.
to be able to do everything. I think AI is a tool for information. Like if I need to know what a plant is, I use the Googles. Um,
The Googles.
I say the Googles because I don't know who they all are, but
Right.
they give me the information, and it tends to respond to my algorithm even when I'm on like incognito, that I
Mhm.
can get what I need. I find that to be really helpful. I also think that when we're going to start doing vertical production because we have energy, so using tech to calculate the optimal angle for lighting or the
Mhm.
timing of lighting to maximize production. That's all AI.
Okay.
So using technology to enhance efficiencies, using AI to, just kind of calculate
Mhm.
cost things so that people are able to make smart decisions. Should I grow oyster mushrooms or okra? Should I
Oyster
focus
mushroom.
on,
Right.
based on what the market? I mean, there's ways to use those tools, and I think it's important for young people who are growing up with digital technology and ways that at my age, I'm like, I don't do TikTok. I don't do like I aged out of those things.
Mhm.
Right.
But they're all using algorithms and AI. So I think it's
Mhm.
important. I don't reject it, but I also don't think it is feasible, especially within growing food, to start with that, because
Okay.
most of us don't have a capitalization to grow using high tech.
And to really
Right.
utilize it.
Yeah, and to even
Yeah.
and for it to make sense. I mean, we're always gonna do, I mean, it's important that we have our hands literally in the soil, and then we understand what the building blocks are.
Mhm.
Because if I just do a soilless system and that's all I'm utilizing, it's not necessarily the most delicious, it's not necessarily the most accessible when we still have food apartheid, when we still
Yes.
not everyone has access to land and resources. We've created this field.
Mhm.
It took 25 years and
Mm.
a lot of resources and a lot of sacrifice just to create this new reality. And it's just beginning because more and more of us with climate change are going to be living closer to cities or in more rural environments where we have to be self-sufficient. And how do you learn that? So the urban farms that are struggling need to bone up on their skills and start teaching others and really thinking about creating closed loop systems and
Mhm.
running their operations like businesses, because
Absolutely.
there's so many people who want to just participate, who will
Mhm.
pay, who want to know where their food comes from. And I
Yeah.
think that when you're just starting, you don't have the bandwidth. I mean, I still kind of don't have the bandwidth to do all the things that I know I should and could be doing because it's still such an emerging field and
Yeah.
none of us have enough resources.
But
Mhm.
you're doing a lot.
You doing
So
a whole
you're
lot
doing
and
a lot.
have done a whole lot.
Yeah.
23 years, shoot.
Girl,
You
I'm an
you got
Allen, so that's, I'm
you
Gullah
got these
Geechee, so that's how we roll,
you got these
you
11
know?
farms. You're doing job training and education. the apprenticeships, the
mental health,
internships. You're
mental health.
selling food. Tell us about the mobile food market because we can't leave that out. So you're doing a lot.
She's
Thank
like,
you, my
oh,
sisters.
oh.
I appreciate this. So we absorbed a few years ago a program that was started by Food Desert Action. This
Hmm.
amazing trio of organizers as a public health intervention. Originally, they were Chicago Transit Authority buses, decommissioned buses, retrofitted to be mobile grocery stores.
That is
We
awesome.
then inherited the program. We ran it for a couple years. It was really hard with the buses because they would break down. They had like millions of miles on them. They were diesel, and
Mhm.
it's wintertime here, so they were always breaking down. Um, and we shifted the program to be like an airport, like the airport transport, like
Mhm.
buses, because we also had issues with CDL drivers, which there was, and I think there still is a deficit of,
Short.
and made it a mobile market. And when the pandemic hit, it turned into an emergency food distribution hub.
Oh.
So we would kind of distribute food. We distributed millions of pounds of food, and then supported a few worker-owned co-ops to do prepared meals. So we did a lot, and then after the recovery, we transitioned back. We're still kind of transitioning back to it being a mobile farmers market. So we're about to do an additional shift in the program so that we're able to lean into a new partner who we've been working with to deliver we have a subscription box where you can
Mhm.
buy a share of the farm. It's actually
Mhm.
a really great way for your previous question around how urban farmers or just small scale farmers can be more successful. It's to do a
Mhm.
subscription box.
And I
Um,
did that during COVID, and I found that, like, we weren't eating all of the it got to be too much. It actually was, like it was a lot of fruits and vegetables that we weren't eating them all, and so I was having to, like, cut up a lot of stuff and freeze it. But, I did it for a little while during COVID, and then it got to be too much, but it's a great idea. It's a great concept.
well, you're
Absolutely.
supposed to be eating all them fruits and vegetables.
I,
It's hard
Well,
for me too.
it's
I got a
I'm
refrigerator of
I'm
it
a
too, and
vegan,
I'm
and
like,
I'm the one vegan in my house.
so, but that people, it's a really good revenue stream, and it's also a way for folks to be able to have access in a consistent way. So
Okay.
that program is also kind of expanded because we worked with Dion Dawson, who has a project called Dion's Dream, and he is a logistics guy, but he started doing home delivery. Same
Hmm.
like a box, smaller box, not as many things.
mhm.
And because he does delivery, he started delivering our CSA, and our numbers shot up because people couldn't come to the farm, and we
Yeah.
struggled with like we're not logistics. And so that direction and being able to really collectively work with another organization that's values aligned, that's Black led, that is working to improve nutrition and the health of the community. Perfect. So we're in the process of really looking at how we can amplify our impact, focus more on production, and also the food as medicine approach. We have an herbalism apprenticeship, which is
I was
our
gonna
most
ask you about that
popular
next.
program, and it really merges all of the pieces of wellness, spirituality,
Mhm.
reclaiming plant medicine, and just the level of need for healing, and just anxiety reduction, and just being in community
Mm.
with plants, like just having a I grew up like, production. My mom did a lot of flowers and beauty things, but I spent most of my time like with the kind of production oriented mindset, and to be able to really build a different relationship with plants is a reflection of how we can build relationships with one another.
Mhm.
So we bring people through. We're fortunate to have an herbalist who's also a social worker and a trained, licensed clinician,
Mhm.
and a reverend. And so her name is Kim Crutcher. And that program is designed, and we co-designed it, where people go through a 3-year kind of cycle. It's much longer than 3 years to become an
Mhm.
herbalist, but 3-year cycle of working on the self, working on the family system, and then working collectively. And
Mhm.
working with the
Mm.
plants as metaphors, understanding their medicinal properties, but really kind of retuning ourselves to these ancient ancestors. I mean, they've been
Yeah.
around forever, and they have really powerful medicinal qualities that we pay a lot of money through pharmaceuticals to get these
Mhm.
properties. And a lot of it is just teas and roots and
I would
knowing our
love to take
grandparents.
that course.
I know. I
It's
was just online,
fantastic. And
online. Look,
our the thing that makes ours really special, and we're gonna have some, hopefully in 25, but definitely in 26, some opportunities, for national participation, like some,
Mhm.
like, kind of, like, long weekends, and, is the physical, like, actually working with the live plants, tending
Yeah.
them, caring
Gotcha.
for them, putting the time in, and doing that work in community is really powerful.
Okay.
Um, and then as you know, you can make value-added products and tinctures and salves and all kinds of amazing other products. So there is a kind of a commercial aspect to it,
Aspect.
but that's for the individual herbalist to decide what they're going to do with their
Mhm.
knowledge. It's most important to us just to reclaim this art and then reclaim this
Yes.
tradition. And it's something that connects everybody. Every indigenous earth-based culture on this planet works with
Use
plant
plants
medicine.
as medicine. They sure did.
you know,
Aspirin. We got
And
aspirin from the indigenous folks
mm,
in, I think it was in the rainforest. They would chew the tree of the bark whenever they had body aches. And
mm,
then when Europeans came in contact with them, they realized that that's what they were doing, and that's what they used. That's how they made aspirin. From that tree
mhm.
of from the bark of that tree is how they were, got aspirin. So we've been, there were back in the days, when women didn't have medicine, there would be teas and herbs that they would take if they got themselves into a situation that they
we
didn't.
have those. We
We
have
have
those.
to.
We do.
So,
And we know how to use them.
yeah,
And
and that's
they got
all.
very prolific once Roe versus Wade got turned over too.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
How serious.
Because, these are all things that women tended to have control over,
Right.
Mhm.
and especially during enslavement. I mean, this is how we cared for one another.
Yes.
Right.
And you would go to
Mhm.
a roots woman or roots man. Everybody has healers in their family,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and our knowledge has been, some of us are afraid of that, afraid of those gifts, and it gets sold back to us.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies take these compounds, distill them, and then it becomes medication.
Yep.
I
Charge
mean,
you
we can go
$500 for 30 pills, but go ahead.
and you
Okay.
can make a tea. There's some things that you can just make a tea
Yeah.
just to that'll just sort of regulate.
Mhm.
There's so many plants that help with perimenopause, which I'm in the
Yes.
process of all of these changes, and there's medicines for that. So that's powerful. So all of it together, and then of course the arts, being able to make art, to make have a creative space, because that has never left my work.
Yeah.
Um, but that full kind of um, the fullness of it, understanding how urban farming and growing food and the healing facets, and how that can help to support transformation for our young people who are struggling and don't see their own futures, or what they see isn't really what we want for them. That
Not what
the
they
kind of
deserve either,
Yeah.
because there is
no,
that is
and
too narrow.
and
You're
they're
absolutely
genius. There's genius. I mean, the
they are genuine.
genius, and that it's so much I mean, I call it community intelligence, like untapped community intelligence. And we have to have these spaces where young people can find themselves
Amen.
and not be ashamed of their gifts, or it's like join the gang. I mean,
Mm.
when I first started this work, and just my kind of dedication to doing community service, I was like, I can't, I'd have these kind. I was like, I don't know what I can replace that with right now. That's my
'Cause that gives them a
responsibility.
sense that gives them a sense of belonging
A
and
It's
family.
something.
money. It's
Yes,
just money.
and
That's
that
it.
too.
Uh,
And so it
what
does have to be replaced with something else. Go ahead, Kat.
But a lot of that on top of the money thing, they have a family, and being from where I'm from and just, but at any rate, people, they feel connected and
Mhm.
they're willing to do whatever it is, especially when their window is like this. But
Yep.
when they're able to get a wise person, maybe an OG or somebody to say, listen, get out of the game. You need to be exposed to X, Y, Z. And so when they're able to see, wait a minute, I can put this weapon down or this bad behavior that doesn't serve myself or our community well. I can pick this skill up and still earn. Now it may be
Yeah.
slow on the uptake because like you said, Queen, you got to learn how to do it. It's going to take decades, but we need to pull them in because they have
Yeah.
that life to live so they can see that
Yes.
they work that. And then we can start tackling down at mental health, which
Mhm.
we're real big on mental health. So it's a great segue into 2 points that I want to make. One is um, mental health and it's healthy. Let me get my mind right. The arts and its positive impact on mental health.
Mhm.
Erika, have you had any experience with that? Beyond, I know because that's your other wheelhouse. And with that brief answer, mental health is really big for us, and we like to empower people with tools on how to manage and basically, quite frankly, get rid of your stress, get rid of your depression and anxiety. And we like to leave people with what is your number one go to on how you manage and try to get rid of stress and manage your mental health with all the things that you do. What is it that you do? Look, give you a little time while I'm spilling it out.
Ooh.
You looked up, so let me give you a little time.
No,
But
that's
we
my
really,
like deep breath, like exactly
uh-huh.
that.
If you want to share, we would love to,
Oh
just
no, I
because a
love
lot
it.
of people, yeah, because people don't know what to do, right? It's like,
Hmm.
oh man, so you don't have to hit the wall. You don't have to go drink a bottle. You don't have to go,
Hmm.
cuss at your spouse. You can try one of these tips that we leave every week. And we're going to share with Erika. Please share with us what is your go to manage your mental wellness.
Well, okay, the real current reality is a lot of rest. Like
Mm.
literal people ask me, how do you do all these things? It's like, well, I do this and then I go inside and I rest and I reflect. So for me, it's a lot of meditation and quiet
Mhm.
time as much as I can take. When I have more than a day off, and I know this is a reality for many of us, with whatever church responsibilities, children, aging parents, extra job. There's just not enough time. Just having, for me, every morning having time, even if it's a half an hour after I get my son off to school, I read some daily inspiration. I try to
Mm.
do some writing if I have the energy. I just sort of like set my mind. I've been doing that for a while, and I have a spiritual practice as well, and so I try to do that on a regular. And and I'm almost there because I've had a lot of rebuilding and launching in the last 2 years. Is just making art, having time to just unload all of the images and ideas. I'm pretty prolific with the way that I work. My practice is prolific. I have a lot of energy and I have to put that somewhere. And so making art, getting the images and the ideas out, talking, having, just having time to, just have good conversation. And then just journaling, just being having a peaceful space to make art, to write, to just creating that space with a cup of tea, my morning coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I love my
Mm.
teas, but having that little, even if it's
Coffee
a
just
short
does
amount of
something
time.
different.
Well, at this, yes, I'm still working, so it's like I can't give up the caffeine yet.
Okay.
But that sets me. And when I don't do that, I've started doing that pretty consistently. This year, I had thyroid surgery earlier this year. So I've been just valuing both the amazing ability for my body to heal, but the transformation in understanding. And this is something that I think for all women, but especially Black women, when there's something wrong with you don't feel like something is right, there's probably something not right.
Right.
and
Listen to your body.
and keep asking and getting support,
Yes.
because we are often misdiagnosed for things, and and
Intentionally on some
Yes.
points, but go
and
ahead.
then just ignorance, because there's not a lot of research that's done on our genetics, and
Yes.
the what may be normal to a white man is not applicable to our systems. And
Yep.
so I had this major, like, uh, thyroid issue,
Mm,
and it having it resolved and having that balance has transformed my
mhm,
body, my energy, everything.
mhm.
And so just that piece, and just being mindful and grateful to be in my body, because I'm really good at externalizing
Mm,
things. Because
mhm,
you just walking around, unless I'm looking into seeing myself, I don't see this,
mm,
right? I see what's around me.
mhm.
um, as I get older, that has become really important. So self-reflection, having time, listening to the body, being persistent about understanding what is wrong and why, and taking the time to rest and heal. And that rest piece is very serious.
Yes.
And
Absolutely, girl. That is
I
so
feel
true.
guilty too about resting
Oh,
sometimes, or
you gotta let that
you
Isn't that
go.
know,
crazy? That
no,
is
I don't.
crazy.
But I have to like do it in my head, because of the way that, go, 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 go. You
Yeah.
gotta work. It's just part of the decolonizing
Mhm.
of our just what we had to survive, what our ancestors had to survive. It's
Yes.
still
Well,
there.
disabuse your mind of that notion, my
I
sister.
know that's right.
Thank you.
Because we need to
Thank
sleep,
you. I
and
Yes.
accept,
sleep,
and
you are taking care
yes.
of self
Yes. Yes.
too.
Yes.
And you need to go through all the different stages of sleep. So you need to have a deep
So
sleep.
you can regenerate
Yeah.
Yeah.
and pour from your
I'm like,
saucer.
now I'm
Pour
like,
from your saucer. So
Yeah.
we've heard some like wonderful information about the Urban Growers Collective. And if folks are interested in getting in contact with you or someone on your staff, is the email address that they can email info@urbangrowscollective.org? Is that the best one? I'm going to go ahead and show that on the screen. So for
Mhm.
general questions, they can email info@urbangrowerscollective.org. And the phone number for the Urban Growers Collective, they're in Chicago, is 773-376-8882. Again, that's 773-376-8882. So, if you've heard information that you want to know more about, give them a call. Shoot them an email at info.urbangrowerscollective.org. If
Yes.
this is something that you want to replicate in your city, you know, find out, ask these questions, and because you guys also host workshops as well too. Isn't that correct, Erica?
We do, and you can find those posted on our website, and we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, both Urban Growers Collective and Green ERA Campus. And you can also follow me at Erika R. Allen. You can find
I
me
know that's
on the
right.
Erica
Instagram.
R. Allen.
I,
Yes.
thank
Thank
you
you.
So
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
so much.
yeah.
Thank you
This is just,
both.
This
we
was such
love having a queen up in our love seat, honey.
Oh.
The first Black
From
woman
from
in.
Queens too, I will accept my crown. Thank you. I've been getting lots of crowning this year, so I I
accepted.
appreciate, and I love to return. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm and support of my work. It really means a lot to me,
Yeah. And for
especially in
those of you,
ATL.
I
right?
know, right?
And for those of you who are in Chicago, you can find the Urban Growers Collective at 1200 West 35th Street in Chicago. That's
That's just our
60609.
office, though.
That's the
Come,
office?
yeah, that's just our office. Come to the
Okay.
South Chicago Farm at 9000 South not Mackinac, 9000 South Mackinac.
Mackinac.
We have tours every day, and you can sign up for those tours on the website. And
Oh.
yeah, we're at our administrative office is on 35th, so
Ah.
there's nothing there, and
Okay.
you won't be able to find us because it's a maze in the building. Come to the farm, and our website has all of our locations,
All
and
right. And
Yeah,
that's
lots of opportunity.
urbangrowthcollective.org.
You got it.
Uh, Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It was such a pleasure spending
Thanks,
time
Karen.
with
Thanks,
you,
Kat.
having you in the love seat, as Kat has said. We want to thank you again for, finding it not robbery to spend time with us.
That
That's
definitely, this was a
right.
treasure trove of reflection, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you,
And
thank you, thank
looking
you.
forward to my next time. So anytime, I will
We
gladly
will
come back
definitely
and
have
chat
you
with
on
you all.
again. And to our
Thank you.
listeners, as always, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.
And as always, don't forget to subscribe to Conversations with Karen and Kat on YouTube, Facebook, IG, and wherever else you can find our podcast. Bye.